welcome to another episode of Games Done Slow and Bad, where we're going to bring you something different today. We're still going to do games slowly and badly, but today we're going to try something different. We're going to show you some of the best games you've never played. What's our definition of the best games you've never played? Well, the best games you've never played are games that have less than a 2% ownership rate. Most of Earth's natural resources have finally been exhausted, and the tiny planet was unable to support the soaring population of humans. In 2045, mankind began to look beyond Earth for solutions and build the first Earth Space Track orbital elevator. The space age had officially begun, and countries all over the world dove into countless research projects and space development plans. It was then that the human race created and discovered several new tools that would change life forever. The LEV, a pilot-controlled interspace robot, the resource Metatron, excavated from the Jupiter moon Callisto, and the Urbeck catapult, a device which, by manipulating space, enabled hyperspeed travel. The discovery and invention of these so-called tools expedited the progress of the space development project, resulting in an exodus into space. In the span of a single century, more than 20 million people took up residences in colonies on the Moon, Mars, and as far away as Jupiter territory. The transition from Earth to space seemed to be going smoothly. However, new conflicts were just beginning to materialize. Human beings left on Earth began to refer to these colonists as Enders, a derogatory term for those living at the end of civilization, expressing their prejudiced attitudes towards non-Earth inhabitants. In response, these immigrants, who were subject to discrimination on top of living in harsh environments, bonded together in their bitterness against Earth, and tensions began between the two groups would only be magnified as time passed. In 2058, anger to the immigrant side culminated in the founding of Bahram, an anti-Earth military based in Vasilla County, Mars, and its subsequent clandestine intervention, blah, blah, blah. So this is basically the longest text scroll ever for the game Zone of the Enders, the Fist of Mars. So, what is different about this Let's Play versus other Let's Plays? In this Let's Play, I'm going to show you a game that has an ownership rate of less than 2%. For instance, this game was released for Game Boy Advance in 2001. 81.51 million units of Game Boy Advance were produced at some point. Of those 81.51 million units, only 0.06 million games are known to have existed based on VGChartz. This would be a 0.07% ownership rate. So this game was developed by Sunrise Interactive and was published by Konami, again back in 2001. So it is 2173, and Mars and the Outer Rim colonies are absolutely tired of the tyrannical Earth treatment that they receive. What's notable here is that your character, Cage, gets basically tossed right in the middle of it. I'm not going to read through every line of text because this game has a crazy amount of text. This game has so much text that IGN was really not a fan of it due to the massive amount of text, which they felt took away from the game itself. But Play Magazine, on the other hand, gave it a perfect score and noted it as a breath of fresh air for Game Boy Advance, who was very favoritive towards platformers and traditional titles on the Game Boy Advance. GameSpy score for this is 7.8 out of 10. And this guy doesn't even crack the top 100 of sold units for games in the history of the Game Boy Advance. Obviously, this is a unique game, and you'll see why here in a second, because most titles were some sort of platformers. This is absolutely not. So, there is a absolutely crazy amount of text, and you're welcome to slow this down, but what I really want to show you is the shining piece of this. I do enjoy a good story, but there is an awful lot of story here. This game controls like a lot of sort of tactical single-player RPGs that involve sort of positioning units and making use of their skills, both their detractors and their advantages, in order to knock out enemies. So Cage is the protagonist here. Everyone else sort of comes in along the way to supplement it, and Cage is basically thrown in the middle of this conflict. So basically, these people are hurtling through space, and obviously, since that guy's named Pilot and that guy's named Captain, something bad is going to happen to them because they don't have real names. There's something heading this way. So I would think of this. I would think of this in the same way I think of other historical colonies. Basically, you have Mars and you have Jupiter and some of these outer rim colonies that are being mined out for their resources. Cage is a spacer. He's out there. He is known as an Ender because he lives out in space. And because of that, people are not exactly thrilled with him. Emergency alert. Contact with an unidentified object, which is generally bad when you're in the vacuum of space. There's a fire in the combustion tank. Compartmentalizing, malfunction. Basically, everyone is absolutely hosed. So Ares appears to be toast. Cage has found this girl in the hangar. The doors will not open to the hangar. So Cage feels like he's a goner. This girl, who doesn't talk, is basically useless. He starts yelling at her, of course. Her name is Myona. Myona Alderaan. It's nice to meet you, Myona. Let's go get some help. She's kind of strange. Well, this is probably a good time to explore her character arc, you know, seeing as the place is about to explode. So what do they find? They find a giant space mech in the hangar. It's the LEV. What's going on here? Someone tried to save us. So this LEV is going to be your ticket off of this exploding ship. So, this is a Gundam, this is a giant mech type game, where you're controlling a giant mech and fighting other giant mechs. On the battle god's palm. So there's a lot of weird sort of translation-y things like that in here. And this is the map. This is a representation of your mech. So there goes the ship you were on. So the thing is registering Cage as its pilot. 42 living recorded. It's the vessel navigation system. And there we go. Warning, unidentified object heading this way, 92.24% chance of attack. Recommended engagement. Wait, we have to fight? Yep, that's the whole point of this game. So, you have a grid map, and you have to fight scary other mechs like this. So, this is a brief tutorial here. Basically, that is your mech right here, and you click your button to sort of either move or attack. So, I have a few different things. A soul shooter with a range of 1 that requires 1400 power, a rusty lancer which has a range of 1 which requires less, and a tier bullet which is a shooter. So, shooters or fighters, I believe there's some support stuff that'll come later. So, I can shoot this guy in the outskirts of my range, but I can't shoot him when he's right next to me. So, I have 2500 health, I'm level 1, I have a 45% chance of hit against his black frame. Let's take a shot. So, mini games. So basically you have to steer over and essentially get over him, and if you get it over the sort of little red spot that's there, it is a basically bonus attack. Alright, stop hitting buttons, Jared. I think phase end here? Yes. So now the enemy gets to move. My enemy's going to move up right close to me and is going to attack. So we might have been good enough there to avoid the attack. Nope, we definitely were not. I thought LEVs were more delicate, but they're pretty durable, huh? Or is this one special? At any rate, this one seems pretty reliable. Unidentified object classification, hostile. Yeah, obviously he just chopped us. Alright, it's only going to let me use a rusty lance right here. So we're going to take a shot at him. He is more powerful than us. We have 8 seconds to get over him. Not quite good enough for a special attack or a critical attack, but we'll do 740. We receive 52 and an upgrade. So it's basically our leveling up. And our goal here is to just live. One thing this game would tremendously benefit from is a tutorial explaining to you exactly what this is. Nope. Who? You? You think you... What? You're breaking up. Con disabled. Possibly due to resident interference. Yep. Origin unknown. Enemy object approaching. High energy levels confirmed. Danger. Take evasive action. So here comes this wing type attack, and we avoided. Feel it was close. So, you pull off this sweet stab, which is animated, you know, pretty silly. But we temporarily knock him out of the game. But we've entered the gravitational well of Mars, and we're going to get sucked in. The robot is awfully mouthy, but we're going to follow the Earth. So, from here on out, we are going to run through this game, and I will provide commentary and voiceover of different things, but we're going to do sort of guideless let's play, go through a few things. So in between, you're able to attack, change your attack balance, whether you want to hit or get more power, and whether you want to defend or escape. So defend is just generally you're going to take it on the chin a little bit better. Escape gives you a better possibility of avoidance. I would argue that hitting becomes more important later on when you become more of a freaking beast. Until then, not overly important. This game is basically organized into sequences. Those sequences are played one after another, and you can save in between a sequence. So you either have to complete something in order to save, or basically fall back to before you start the level. Which is a little rigid, I will say. So she has amnesia, and we're going to try and help her figure out who she is. She told you her name, but, you know, she doesn't remember anything. So this is a name navigation system, so obviously it's important. It's more advanced than usual. And she remembers literally nothing. She remembers very basic stuff, but nothing about herself. So, we've been pulled into the fields of Mars, and it landed itself on autopilot after coming through the atmosphere. But now, we got some other LEVs. You are an unregistered LEV, and they believe that you destroyed that ship. So you are under arrest. And rather than trying to sensibly talk this out with them, you're obviously going to do the only sane and rational thing and fight back. So you see here in some room conversation between two shady people, noting that Plan 261 has been executed. So these are part of the sort of ragtag terrorist force out on Mars, trying to mix it up with Earth and cause an international incident. It does make you question, though, whether or not if you had people living on another planet, would they be allotted the same rights and privileges as someone who is, say, left on Earth? History would say no. History would say that those folks who go somewhere will be considered, lesser than. So Cage Midwell, age 17. So you're a terrorist. So somewhere on Mars got attacked by this new LEV. They believe it's you. Civilians suffered. So, according to this, everyone is dead. But we know that the LEV, the mech, told us that not everyone was dead. And it's far more reasonable to believe that the mech, which was right next to the crash, which is clearly very advanced, is absolutely ready to go. It also reported him as dead, which clearly means that they're sort of just guessing at this. Now, when I say that there's a lot of text, man, there's a lot of text. So they're sort of going through the iterations of who this could be. This is very Dragon Ball Z, 25 minutes of conversation, 3 minutes of fighting, and a 2-minute recap. Basically, they believe that this could be some sort of government conspiracy or someone famous doesn't want to be known. This is a new LEV that attacked the Bonaparte, and what are we going to do about this? So now we're going to get a little character development about Ares, who, at this point you don't know is still alive, but clearly since they're talking about them and not pilot or captain, he's clearly more important. Okay, just come over here and let me see your face. I'm opening up the peephole now. So, perpetual motion. Random scene names, go! Okay, we are back on the surface of Mars. He escaped in a pod, he was watching local news, came here to rescue him. This is Dexon. And there's 2 security guys. Who was attempting a breakout. Which is great. So we're going to be a decoy. And we're going to disable. They're really specific about noting that they want to disable and not destroy. So clearly they don't want you to seem like the bad guy. Alright, let's take a shot. We're going to practice a little bit. So this guy should be a lot easier to hit. We have 10 seconds to get a much larger little red spot. I think we got him. Bam! Critical. So there we go. So yep, we need to get in there. And I'm wondering if on the defense I might be doing it wrong. I might need to basically run away from them rather than attempting to match their shot. Yep, that's it. We just got to avoid it. Okay, that makes more sense. So what's cool about this game? Well, it is tremendously different from literally anything that was out there at the time for this console. This console was famous for its Mario games and its Legend of Zelda games. Certainly not for these mechy combat games. This and Advance Wars represents something tremendously different from basically anything else that was out at the time. And they both stand out as being exceptionally fun games. This is very verbose and very story-heavy, but you can really boil it down, if you're not in the mood for reading a book, to guy gets wrapped up in something shady. He's not truly involved, but gets wrapped in anyways. And in order to prove his innocence, he has to basically go on the lam and essentially, in the end, catch the culprits who are truly responsible. So if memory serves, the big swinging loop is the best way to do this. And you can double down on avoidance rather than putting it in damage, and it works out pretty well. So this, I am doing this on a Retron 5. If you've seen a Retron 5 controller, I actually have access to a really lovely directional pad that makes a lot of weird clicks, which you might be hearing. That is substantially better than what I would have if I were playing this on a Game Boy Advance with the little directional pad. It gives me access to a tremendous amount more flexibility. If I were doing this on a Game Boy Advance, I'd have up, down, left, right, and I could mash them in combination in an attempt to make that happen. Yeah, XP, cash, upgrade. So they got out. You're allowed to make decisions. They make no difference whatsoever. People shouldn't hurt each other. That's my take here. So I'd love to do a soul shooter. It's just I just don't think there's a real need to. We're gonna let this guy shoot at us again. We're gonna avoid it again, and then go knock him right out. There we go. Another successful avoid. So movement is in a grid, and you have a certain number of squares that you can move. In the case of this LEV, you can move 6 squares. So this IAS system can be shut off, but I think it adds an element of sort of snap play that otherwise you don't get, which makes it a lot of fun. Hey, not bad. I wouldn't mind having one of those around myself. There we go. So Dexon is apparently a tool who is very frequently in jail. Dex and his friends, by the way. And here come Dexon's friends. So here is where it becomes a lot more fun. Because Dexon's friends bring with them a whole bunch of different vehiculars. So you gotta get there. That's Semmel. That's Razma. And these guys just basically fight. So let's take a look at them. This is a tank called the Blade. It has a repair system and limited attack capabilities, mainly as beam cannon, which is not a terrible thing at all. We're going to use that to get away. We also have another mech over here with a tremendous amount of different attacks. So this is the Caliburnus and is a shooter first, with a really cool missile attack, which I'm going to show off here. So you have less time to lock this one on. 11 with the other mech, 8 with this, but if you're snappy, you can get it done. And these should be knocked out, I think, in one hit. Yep. You do get a benefit from knocking out as many folks as possible. So here is Dresden, which is another shooter, massive shooter. Really gets the job done there. But that is all for this turn. So let's end this phase. And I think we're going to knock these guys out just for the heck of it. Okay, so with this guy, because he's more of a shooter than for an aggressor, he has to evade larger bubbles for 6 whole seconds. And we did it, despite the fact that laser blade should be a lot harder to avoid. Okay, 6 seconds again. There we go. Doing really well. I don't remember ever being this good, but I think it's the Retron controller just being significantly more advantageous for this sort of thing. So we're playing through this, and you might be asking yourself, well, this game looks like something I would enjoy. How can I get a copy to play? Well, unfortunately, this one is not as simple as some of the other stuff we will eventually play. This game is really only available as a cartridge. You can pick up a cartridge for what is really an inexpensive amount. I was able to pick one up for about 15 bucks. And you can get yourself a Gameboy Advance iteration for relatively cheap money. I've seen them in the 20s or less for a working console. We're going to laser blade this guy. So all up and in, if you're willing to drop, a little over $30, you are perfectly capable of playing this game. Getting a copy can be a little bit tricky. There aren't a plethora of them online. But they are out there, and from time to time, I've seen the sell records be a little bit more favorable, where you can get them for $10 or less. So at that price, I think this is a definite worthwhile game. All right, we are doing great here. Generally, I'm not nearly this good at avoiding these attacks. Alright, we're going to attempt to group up as best as we can. in order to take out these 4. Alright, we got 11 seconds to get this guy. That might be it. Not sure. Yep. Alright, so this guy right here is very clearly a shooter, and we'll get to do some fun stuff with him, hopefully, as those other guys come in. It's not going to be good enough, but it's okay. Come on. Yeah. That's good enough. That'll get done. So as we do this, we're earning more cash, more upgrades, etc. Obviously, the ability to upgrade our mechs will come in handy in the not-so-distant future. So that, I think, is a huge win. We also get more cash, which is important in the game to be able to keep your mechs up to snuff. Alright, so shooters are all lined up. We'll have our good mech taken on the chin as these guys come in. And hopefully we'll be able to do some damage on the way in. Thing to remember is Cage's mech is not a great ranged attacker, but he is capable of doing something. And that's something you have 11 seconds to do, so... Yep. Oh, and a stun. That's excellent. Got a long rifle here. Take him out from a distance. This should be able to take him down. We just get a score on him. Now this might look really simple here, but this is an introduction to the attack system. As you get further into the game, you have to make a real definitive choice between accuracy and power. Now, I could just go. I could. There's nothing that says that I have to stay here and fight all of these mechs. But what fun would that be? Let's stab some guys. That might count. There's a very generous hitbox. Which is nice. Especially early on as you start to get acquainted with this. Ooh, Calamity Kiss. This will be fun. Let's take this guy. Alright, this is Fraser. This guy is level 3. He's a little bit more difficult. I only get 6 seconds to target this. And that should be money. Calamity Kiss. Yeah, yep. That was fun. Alright, let's end this phase. Who's he gonna come after? Well, that's lame. Oof. That's some aggressive shooting there. Did we get it? Yeah, you got it. So, this truck here is actually capable of repairing or attacking. As an attacker, it's very, very mediocre. As a tool to repair, significantly better. So we are going to get them in on attacking, though, because it is good to get a balanced crew going. Boom, boom! So you see it looks like an AT-AT. It's pretty cool. Who do we want to finish him off? We haven't used a grenade yet. Let's use a grenade. That sounds fun. This one is pretty much a one-hit KO on these little punny guys. So it's fun just on its own. That should count. Ba-boom. There we go. Boom, boom, boom. Put a typical end to one of these stages. And now we get a ludicrous amount of communication. So this is Nadia of UNSF Special Task Force going after the quote-unquote terrorists. And clearly these guys know each other. So we retained Repair Kit 1 and 2,000 cash. What can we do with cash? Well, now we have a garage. And what can we do with the garage? We can fortify the LEV, fortify the weapon, or fortify a part. So we're able to increase the shell, which I believe allows us access to other things. The HP, which is pretty obvious. And we're allowed to modify attacks that we find ourselves using more frequently, which is pretty cool. The blade, for instance, can make their beam cannon actually, usable. Or we can fortify a part. So we're able to throw in a repair kit so that we can use that part in the middle of a battle. Again, there's so many things we can do here. But at 2,000 cash, we're probably going to save for now until we discover how we want to use this. This has been a pretty long episode. Let's synopsis, though. This game was produced back in 2001 for the Gameboy Advance, and based on the data I was able to find, was owned by 0.07% of game system owners. So Konami really made a gem with this one. It is a boatload of fun. A futuristic mech combat in space is a nice addition to the GBA. I have to agree with Play Magazine that this is a breath of fresh air. The text can be a little bit daunting, but text in a Game Boy Advance game is the only method of actually creating a storyline. There's not much you can do in terms of long cutscenes to sort of build emotion, so you really got to rely on compelling dialogue to advance the narrative. I hope that after seeing this game, it's something that you yourself would be interested in getting. If this is something that you would like to see more of on the channel, like, comment below, let me know. This is something that I think could potentially have legs in the future, but for right now, this is the best game you've never played. Thank you so much, and have a good night.